And so it is to the printing press, to the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be what he was born to be, free and independent.
Welcome to Odd Reality Radio, the show designed to generate thought through entertainment. Join us as we explore the strange and unexplained, the unanswered, and the unbelievable on Odd Reality Radio.
An error doesn't become a mistake until you refuse to correct it.
Hey there, fellow freethinkers. This is your host, Ty West. And today we'll be taking the strange and unexplained journey into the Dyatlov Pass Incident. But first, we'd like to thank those listeners who have left us feedback so far. It's extremely helpful in the development of Odd Reality Radio, and it makes us feel good. First up, we'd like to thank Katie in Canada for her email. Thank you very much, Katie. And we're always happy to hear that we've helped anyone at all. And for those of you who don't know what the email is, it is oddrealityradio@gmail.com. So feel free to leave us some feedback, questions, comments, personal stories, whatever you'd like. Next up, we'd like to thank Lily Claire in Italy and Jared right here in Utah for their comments on our Facebook page. And for those of you who haven't yet checked that out, you can go to facebook.com/oddrealityradio, and while you're there, please give us a like. And finally, we'd like to thank Corrupt 007 and Kyle P for their extremely helpful reviews on iTunes. And if you're listening to us on iTunes or Stitcher, please consider leaving us a review. I'd also like to mention another great podcast produced by a friend of Odd Reality Radio, the Conspiracy Theories and Unpopular Culture Podcast, which is produced by Isaac Weishaupt, who recently published the book A Grand Unified Conspiracy Theory, which covers a lot of great topics that we discuss here on Odd Reality Radio, including the Illuminati, ancient aliens, symbolism, and much, much more. So if you just go to illuminatiwatcher.com, you can get a copy of the book, and you can link directly to the podcast from the website, which again is illuminatiwatcher.com. So without further ado, let's get into the show. What's going on? We're talking about the Dyatlov Pass today. I'm Ty West.
And I'm Joshua Ray.
And this is the bizarre and unexplained case of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. Just to kind of catch everyone up, and for those that aren't familiar with the story at all, it's the story of the 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, who organized a trip for him and 9 of his friends to hike and cross-country ski across a mountain known by the local indigenous Mansi tribe as the Kholat Syakhl,
which the English translation is the Mountain of the Dead.
But they were on their way to the mountain by the name of Otorten. And what was the translation for that one?
Don't go there. Don't go there.
So it already sounds like an awesome vacation.
That's where I plan.
This mountain range is located in the Ural Mountains in northern Russia, and the 10 mountaineers left on January 23rd, 1959. There would only be one survivor of the entire original 10, and that is Yuri Yudin. He became ill, supposedly, just before they reached the backcountry and stayed behind in a nearby town while the other 9 trekked on.
The last populated area.
Right. And on February 2nd, according to the camera footage that was found later on, the crew set up camp on the face of the Mountain of the Dead, and it would be the last known location of a calm atmosphere for those 9 campers. It had been agreed beforehand that Dyatlov would send a telegram to their sports club as soon as the group returned back. It was expected that it would happen no later than February 12th, but Dyatlov had also told Yudin that he expected to be a little longer. And so when this date passed and no messages had been received, there was no immediate reaction. Delays of a few days were common in such expeditions back in the 1950s, early 1960s, and only after relatives of the travelers demanded a rescue operation did the head of the institute send the first rescue groups, consisting of volunteer students and teachers. On February 20th, later the Army became involved, with planes and helicopters being ordered to join the rescue operation. On February 26th, they finally found the abandoned and badly damaged tent on Kholat Syakhl. The student who found the tent, Mikhail Sherevin, said the tent was half torn down and covered with snow. It was empty, and all of the group's belongings and shoes had been left behind. Investigators said that the tent had been cut open from the inside. A chain of 8 or 9 sets of footprints left by several people who were wearing only socks, a single shoe, or were completely barefoot could be followed and led down toward the edge of nearby woods. On the opposite side of the pass, which was 1.5 kilometers or nearly a mile northeast, but after about 500 meters or 1,600 feet, they were covered with snow. At the forest's edge, under a large cedar, the searchers found the remains of a fire, along with the first 2 bodies, those of Yuri Kravanashenko and Yuri Doroshenko. They were both shoeless and dressed only in their underwear. The branches on the tree were broken up to 5 meters high, suggesting that a skier had climbed up to look for something. Well, or possibly get away from something.
That would be my idea.
Between the cedar and the camp, the searchers found 3 more corpses. That of the group's leader, Dyatlov, one of the females of the group, Zina Kolmogorova, and Rustam Slobodin, who seemed to have died in poses suggesting that they were attempting to return to the tent. They were found separately at distances of 300, 480, and 630 meters from the tree. Searching for the remaining 4 travelers took more than 2 additional months. They were finally found on May 4th, under 4 meters of snow in a ravine 75 meters farther into the woods from the cedar tree where the 3 originally were found. These 4 were better dressed than the others, and there were signs that those who had died first apparently had ended up relinquishing their clothes to the others, to the point where, one man was wearing a woman's fur coat and hat, while the woman was wearing, a piece of somebody else's wool pants, and they were basically just, in
it
a
almost
state
suggests that the other people died, obviously, first, and then they were able to claim some of their clothing, but
right.
That means there was a brief period of, maybe whatever it was left.
Right.
How else would you be able to get to there? And you're like, I'm running for my life, but hold on, I'm going to go grab dude's socks.
Right. And I'm wondering how far along the line did everybody flee, and how far did they make it?
Well, it did give some distances.
Well, as a group, though, obviously the 3 or 4 that made it, the 4 remaining that they found in May, they ended up how much further down the line? They obviously made it longer because they had the clothes of the past or the deceased.
I only know that the original 5 that were found were 3/4 of a mile from the campsite towards the tree line. So the tree line was about a mile. So it looks like they were trying to make the tree line for safety, which they should have camped there in the first place, it sounds like.
Yeah.
But I don't like... Anyways, go ahead.
But who knows, because supposedly I've heard that this could have been a junior expedition to a bigger mountain that they were supposedly going to be climbing later on.
Yeah, that's the story, but it does seem a little fishy.
There's a lot of things in this story that seem fishy.
But let's just start with this.
Absolutely.
So that you have a mountain named the Mountain of the Dead.
Yeah.
And don't go there. To me, I might do that because I'm not very bright. But these guys were scientists. These guys and girls were scientists.
Right.
And they should know, if I'm a novice and I'm going to train to do something, start at the Bunny Hill. That's where you start. You don't go to the one that says Mountain of the Dead and don't go there for your training purposes.
No, they were all graduates of the Ural Polytechnical Institute, or, pre-grad, and so these weren't idiots, but again, how much training had they had? I don't know. I wasn't able to find enough information on their previous experiences to back up that claim that this was, just a stepping stone on their way to a bigger mountain. But, I mean, there are so many strange elaborations of these four main theories that basically, wrap it all up. And, why don't we cover a couple of these theories?
I say we just shoot Yeti out of the water right off.
Why? Come on. Didn't you see that Discovery Channel?
Oh, crap, yeah. Never mind.
See, Yeti
did it.
It was a documentary, and it was on the Discovery Channel, so it's definitely
TV, so,
legitimate, 100%.
That's true. Fuck, the show's over.
Well, it was a Yeti. So I guess thanks for tuning in. Unfortunately, it's going to be a short show. No, so the Yeti, I have to agree. I think that the Yeti is one of the lesser likely, but still I can't completely discredit the potential of it because of the strangeness of everything. And
no, but you would think that, say, a Yeti was there, the Yeti did all this damage.
Right.
I could understand people scurrying for their lives if they saw some big hairy beast. Makes sense. But there's also parts to the story that doesn't quite fit in. If the Yeti is an unfound ape,
right,
then I don't think he has technology like radiation guns and...
Well, that's a good point. There was radiation found.
Exactly. And so then also, if he's... I don't think that he would cover his tracks. Supposedly, the only tracks that were there were theirs.
That's another good point.
If you have a Yeti in the area, and I don't think he covers his tracks, but I also think that if he crushed these people's bones and skull, and apparently there was no marks left on the skin.
Right.
Now, whether he has the ability to punch through skin
a good point.
Without making impact on the skin.
Yeah, no damage, no abrasions.
Ridiculous.
It is pretty ridiculous
I could imagine, I could see an animal like that viciously killing people if they're, whatever.
If it existed, there's the plausibility.
But I would think you would see more real blood, like smashing. Their faces would be
I think there would be more grotesque things than it seemed a little more precise because a couple of them had their eyes removed.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I mean, I don't know Yetis or how they attack, but it just doesn't seem... Maybe if it was like a raven?
Yeah, or, well, and that's what some people claim, that it was
after the fact.
Another one of the theories.
That's good.
Well, just to get away from the Yeti theory, because we both agree that this is not as likely as any of the others. And one that is also, in my opinion, a little less likely, but in some ways somewhat likely to the degree, and I'll get into that in a minute, but the avalanche theory. So the theory goes that, these 9 hikers they set up camp on February 2nd and they hear an avalanche on its way and they panic and get themselves out. And, apparently in the haste to get out, who knows, maybe they got lost or ended up getting so cold that hypothermia set in. And
it's
obviously we weren't there, but
30 Celsius.
Right, and I believe
so-
that they classified this route at that time of the year, during that time of the season. It was an estimated Category 3 climb, the most difficult. And it says here that all members were experienced in long ski tours and mountain expeditions, but to what degree?
Who knows? But as far as I found on the avalanche theory, they are at the top of the mountain. Well, near the top
Right.
of this mountain.
And directly on the face, too.
So there's not a lot of buildup of snow in that area above them. And also that there's not I don't even know if any avalanches occurring in the area. So it's not, I'm pretty sure they probably happen. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But from what I read, if they do happen, they are very few and very far between. So the likelihood of that is possible, but probably not plausible.
Right.
And so then you also have the lack of injury. If you're rolling and getting tossed around in snow, which is not just fluffy little snow, it's hard, ice-packed, that stuff will tear your skin up. And maybe pull your eyes out, maybe radiation. I don't know.
Oh, yeah, okay, I didn't know. That's right. Avalanches and radiation are...
So that's the other thing you have. There's the lack of injury, external injury,
right,
and then radiation. That, to me, doesn't really allow.
Well, that
for
also just disproves
avalanches.
The Yeti one, the Yeti theory even further. That unless Yetis run around radiated, and they're just irradiated creatures, and maybe that's why they aren't leaving footprints, bro.
There's a lot of interesting theories on what those guys are, and we'll have to do a show
who's
and
to
elaborate.
Say
but
that the Yeti wasn't irradiated, leaving no footprints because he's the one that caused the damn avalanche.
Maybe they just...
Well, there's another show. Well, we're going to wrap it up a little early again.
But yeah, we're done.
So, no, but...
But the thing is, so if there was an avalanche, wouldn't they have known that? Wouldn't they be like, oh, yep, it was an avalanche? Why would that be a theory? Because you'd have the whole mountainside of snow down in one other area. I don't think that that's hard to figure out whether an avalanche happened or not.
That's true. And one thing that I wanted to point out, though, that I think that there is some plausibility that the remaining members of the group, whether whether it happened after they were deceased or fell into the ravine or whatever, I think that they were covered in 4 meters of snow. Now, I don't know if that fell on them or if it was an avalanche that had slid on top of them, but
that was the 4 that was found that were
at the
found
very
2
end.
months later.
Right.
That's plenty of snowfall, and I don't,
Absolutely. But again, I don't know if there was, an avalanche in the area at the time or, how likely it would be for us to find out. Of course, we're not going to find out what we want to. Aside from the avalanche and the Yeti, we've also got, people are saying that the military was involved, that this was some type of rocket testing, some sort of, nuclear warhead, potentially because of the radiation found, and it was just a military test that went wrong, or these hikers were in the wrong place at the wrong time.
It's a possibility. I think that there's, as far as I found, there wasn't really any military bases around there, and I don't know how, ballistic missiles were kind of in their infancy, I believe. I don't know if that's true. could be just talking out of my ass. Possibly.
Well, no, because last week we discussed Tesla was the one that helped with the radar and the guided missile
That's
and
true.
things.
So that was
they
in
were probably in development.
44 when they would have basically, or 43 when they would have gotten whatever he created. So and used it. But but we're also
nearly
talking
20
about
years later.
Russia versus U.S. So
Correct.
it's like I don't know. I mean, I honestly, the radiation's there, but is it on the level of say Nagasaki, Hiroshima?
That's what I wanted to
thing.
Point out too.
Nowhere near that. And from what I understood, they could just kind of basically wash this off.
But there were two members, right, that were a little more heavily covered. Supposedly, they were found with a little more
not sure
radiation, but the rest of them just had light radiation, which kind of suggests that if this was some sort of rocket test or ballistic test, they're not going to use light levels of radiation on something like that. I
wouldn't think, but I mean, even if it was a test on your own country, on your own land,
well, that's a good point too.
Why would you use any?
Well, we've done it. And,
well, I mean, I understand. But also, most of these they have designated areas for testing military stuff, like very large flat areas.
Exactly.
They don't do it at the Mountain of the Dead, or don't go there. And
it's a public access.
Yeah, it's public access. So if it was a testing something maybe in its infancy and it just went haywire and landed over there, sure, why not?
Yeah.
It doesn't account for lack of external injury.
Well, and not only that, there was, and again, if the military did it, they would probably come in and cover up the remaining debris or anything that was left behind. But there wasn't enough, like you said, radiation. There wasn't enough other evidence that even suggested a blast. There was nothing else destroyed. There was nothing else burned other than the small fire that they had under the tree.
Yeah. So then it kind of just leaves you with dun dun dun.
Well,
UFOs.
We're left with the UFOs. Well, and the UFO could be military.
I agree. Just about to say that. I think that those two go hand in hand. If you have a possible military or UFO incident, what normally happens immediately after? We don't know because we don't know they exist.
Right.
But every time there's a supposed UFO, like Roswell,
yeah,
then the military flies in there, but you don't have the same kind of reaction, with different accidents. When somebody calls in and says Cessna went down, you don't have the whole military.
No, it's not a giant investigation.
Entourage going down there and tarp and stuff and covering it up and dragging it out of there where you can't see what's on the truck,
Yeah.
So, those things make it suspicious. If you don't want us to believe in UFOs, take the stuff out uncovered.
Yeah.
Then it leaves no suspicion. Yeah, I saw it. It was a freaking plane that they,
Yeah, and it was a gory mess.
But no, so I'm just saying that it seems like if you were to have just these guys go missing, die, you would have your basic, search and rescue groups, not the military. Why would the military be involved in a couple citizens, 10 people, nothing special about them, too much, as far as we know?
Yeah.
Why would they be there?
Well, wasn't Dyatlov interested, like you said, into radios? And
as a kid, he was kind of just inventive and curious. He made simple telescopes and things like that to look at the moon. He also was really interested in radio signals and ham radio. He built transmitters and receivers all by himself. There's his sister apparently said his one wall was just all radios that he had built himself, and he was talking to people all over the world, and maybe he was picking up signals from, say, a place called Don't Go There. I don't know.
That's a good point.
So if he was picking up, say, random, he's like, what is this? Because he's listening to radio signals all the time. And this is just a wild-eyed theory, but I think that the possibility for them to go to a place that's obviously forbidden, at least in the name, I think they were going for more than a skiing trip. I think maybe this guy who happened to be the leader, Igor Dyatlov, who was a scientist, a radio enthusiast, and also happened to be senior at the Institute, at the Polytech Institute's radio technology facility.
Yeah.
So he has radio background, so to speak.
He knows transmissions.
And signals, and maybe just through listening and messing around, he heard something and said, hey, let's go check out what this is. Well, they get there, and they found out. You know, I personally think it was E.T., aliens of some sort, because it accounts for everything. But the only thing that sucks about that is I don't really know if it does, because I don't know what ETs do. So
right.
I just think it does, but I think radiation can kind of be summed up with whatever propulsion system they were using, maybe. And,
how many other instances?
The exhaust blew this kind of stuff on them. Who knows? Maybe the weapons that they were using to harm these people without external harm, because they had internal organs with radiation. So it's not like exhaust or just dust, I guess, falling on them.
Yeah.
Right? So it's penetrating the skin and damaging internal organs and bones and below the surface of the skin without hurting the external. To me, that sounds like magic, and the only people that I could think of that have magic like that would probably be like ETs or something. Maybe I'm just
and
silly.
If, like we said, it could be military in accordance with an ET or ET technology.
I think so. I mean, because for the most part, in my opinion, I think most of the G7 countries have some sort of contact with ETs.
Yeah.
And I know that's out there on the crazy limb, but I think that it's possible that they were working with them and probably trying to benefit from their technology. Maybe these ETs live in this area under the ground or something like that. But what also led me to believe that it was ET related is that Lev Ivanov. So he was the lead investigator at the time when it originally went down, and he said it was something. What was it? Some freak of nature. What was the term that they used? Some overwhelming force, or
it was an overwhelming force of nature that was the cause of death. Something
along those lines was the cause of all of it, like the why they ran out of their tents and why, just some overwhelming force of nature. But then in 1990, probably nearing his deathbed, I don't know, there's an article titled "The Enigma of Fireballs," where he admitted that in the spring of 1959, under the pressure of A.P. Karolinko and his deputy, he withdrew various key materials from the case that indicated the true cause of the accident: fireballs or UFOs.
That's something. Now, with that in mind, 2 years after the incident happened, Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, is sent on one orbit of the planet, and then to come back. Now, I heard that the way that he came back was in the same pod that they sent him in. It came, plummeting at Earth, and at approximately 75,000 feet,
balls, man.
He was to eject and parachute the remaining distance to the planet. He did this.
The first guy.
Okay?
I'll be your monkey.
What's strange about that is that there's actual photographs from that trip of this specific mountain range, which could lend to an interest. Now, if it isn't ET and military combined involvement, who's to say that it isn't some sort of, like you said, an underground civilization, mirroring Dulce or something like that the military is trying to get interested in or trying to get information on, and that's why
I think they
for
knew
the 3 years after this incident, nobody was allowed in the area.
Well, I think that they had to have already known of it in order to cover it up, because they must have been, maybe they were, either they knew of them and just that's why it was called the Mountain of the Dead, and don't go there because that's where
those names came from the indigenous people. So who's to say that they didn't have some information too?
That's the same thing. those people may have gone up there and they
Found out.
only were left in the way that the Dyatlov Pass incident, the same way that those people were left. They go and find that. Oh, don't go there, Mountain of the Dead. You know? So something's been killing people in those mountains for a long time, at least according to what's the tribe's name?
The Manzi.
The Manzi. So if they named it, people don't just go up there and fall down and they're like, oh, he fell down and died. Let's name that the Mountain of the Dead.
Yeah.
There's something strange happening there.
Yeah, there is a correlation, definitely. I do have to agree that I think that the plausibility of this being, potentially UFO involvement is very, very high, because there was some photographs, like I said earlier in the report, that basically told the story up until the last known, atmosphere of calm within the group. And the 33rd frame of the camera is the last known photo to be taken by the camera by anyone of and who knows if it was by somebody, if not by something, but the photo has been modified in a couple of different ways by a couple of different people, with multiple suggestions as to what it could be specifically, but both of those conclusions point to UFOs and to extraterrestrials more specifically. So I think that, the logical thing would be to say that it's probably just a Yeti, right? Because that was the best version theory so far.
No, we're going with avalanche.
Oh, yeah, that's right, because it's natural.
Natural.
And we can deal with
It's
that.
done. You don't have to think. You don't have to look. It's just, avalanche. Killed
Okay.
them. Fuck, their eyes fell out. What do you want me to
Yeah,
do?
fucking tongue got chewed out by
When they were
the avalanche
screaming.
monster.
Anyways, but yeah, I think it was a combination of Yeti, because he got up there and he started making all these
And radioactive
and then,
as well.
And then when he screamed at him, that what woke him up and startled him to run out of the tent caused the avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have both of these things, and that's why the whole damn story's so tricky, because you never thought it was two of them.
Yep, and then the military came with their Yeti, and there was a Yeti battle, and UFOs came and cleaned everything up.
Yeah.
So it was everything.
How did we get a show?
I don't know. It's because we funded it.
Oh, yeah, that's right. So I think it's also important to note that Yuri
Gagarin? Or Gagarin?
Gagarin. I'm so sorry, Soviet, Russian people. This was in Soviet time. I don't know where to go with what the place. Just going to go with Russian. And I'm sorry for messing up your names. So he was a Soviet pilot and a cosmonaut. He was the first man to journey into space. And this is hearsay, I guess. He sent a coded message saying he believed it was aliens 1 month before he died, and that he also died mysteriously. In March 1927, March 27th, 1968, the MiG-15 he and his test pilot were flying crashed mysteriously. The black box was never found. The investigation was conducted by a special government commission, whatever that is, and is still classified to this day. But some people of Novoslav?
Sounds Russian to me.
Yeah. Still remember exactly what happened that day, and the carpenter Vladimir Morozov was the first person on the scene and saw the strange objects on the ground and something flying silently in the sky, like a ghost, he described, then disappeared into thin air. But there was also other witnesses that claimed that this ball crashed directly into the MiG-15
And then took off?
And that's what caused the accident, and then it was seen by him and took off. So I mean, it was pretty close, but so
this is Gagarin we're talking about.
Yes.
Okay, and this is how many months or years after he sent a coded message saying that
1 month
he suggested it was UFOs?
1 month after and it says I guess they call the gray alien Maitre.
Okay.
And so it said Maitre, and then it also said the gate has been opened or the gate is opened again. What those things mean, all I know is that Metre is the gray alien, and what this gate was, I have no idea. But that's one of the things that led me to believe that this Dyatlov stumbled upon some kind of signal.
Yeah.
And that's why they went there. And I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong. But to me, it makes sense because he dabbled with this kind of stuff his whole life. And to find some strange signal, I think it would be intriguing. And I think for a scientist, I think it would just basically motivate him to go there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an intriguing theory, definitely. And it's something that I hope that, possibly one of our listeners can give us a little bit more foresight if we've missed something. Or
please do, because I mean the history back at that time after the Stalin Purge and the whole thing, and how the mainstream media didn't tell them anything. It was just propaganda.
Right.
So they were all underground with their knowledge, and any kind of truth had to be super 007. So these guys know. I believe that there's somebody, most likely they're in Russia or they're over there, and they're the ones who know from the underground knowledge and whatever passed around. Probably still are nervous or scared to talk about it because the way that people just got disappeared if they even said, like, I don't like the government.
Right.
Yeah, so.
Right, and that was what you referred to as the Stalin Purge, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. When was the height of that?
I believe it was right after World War II.
Okay.
So it was just basically wiping out any kind of information, just clearing the books, so to speak, so that nobody can stumble upon some of their
that would definitely
horrendous
quiet
crimes.
Up anybody who
fear is a massive motivator.
Consider, leaking any of this information. But yeah, I agree. Fear is unfortunately something that is all too present in our society nowadays, and it's all too easy to conjure up.
Yeah.
So with that, I think that we should probably, acknowledge that the most important thing about this case, in our opinion, is that the people that perished are the ones that should be remembered, and their families are the ones that
deserve the answers.
Deserve the answers more than anyone. As curious of the story and as strange as this might be, I definitely think that if this was one of my family members, I wouldn't shut up. I wouldn't stop until I had the answers that I needed.
Yeah, I think Yuri Yudin said something like, if he could ask God for one thing or something along those lines, he wants to know what happened to his friends up there. Yeah, and then there's also stories that he disappeared.
That's right.
So I mean, it's a mystery.
It is, and every time that we open our mouth about it, it seems like there's more information that's more mysterious that lends, more credibility to one theory than another. But it's just this push and pull and, tug of war almost that I hope we get some closure eventually. But until then, please let us know what your thoughts are. Get a hold of us at oddrealityradio@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/oddrealityradio. We're on Twitter at oddrealityradio. And the website is going to be at the end of this episode with the brand new outro. And again, as always, continue to investigate life through the lens of possibility. I'm Ty West.
And I'm Joshua Ray.
Take care.
Peace.
The music provided on today's episode comes from freepd.com, courtesy of the group Phase Shift. For more information, log on to oddrealityradio.wix.com/home.